Buenos dias, Steve, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I'm excited to introduce Steve Harrison, founder and MD of Flora Fusion, which is one of the biggest developers of organic CBD products in Scotland and the UK. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much, Javier. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. Very good accent, I have to say.
Excellent.
Brilliant. So, Steve, tell us a little bit about your journey. How do you end up in this industry?
I guess that's sort of a long story. Goes back to when I was about 18, and I remember the stigma around cannabis being very heavily influenced in my youth, about the say no to drugs campaigns and everything like that we grew up with, which were very influential to my generation. But when it came to cannabis, there was always that inkling that something's not right. There's something just not quite, doesn't make sense in relation to our fear of the plant as opposed to its actual effects. And myself personally, as a youth, experimented with friends around the plant in a recreational fashion, and certainly got that sort of first-hand experience. But also, I was a bit of a responsible person in most aspects. But it was always about just trialing and seeing things, which was an alternative to alcohol, and that's about as far as we wanted to go at that age. But I remember the stigma around it was very widespread, and certainly the stigma was attached to lack of knowledge on the back of it, of why are we so scared of this plant? What does it do? What is the thing? Now that was like an almost umbrella thought pattern as I grew up and became an adult and had my life experiences. And in in 2016, when Flora Fusion was established, that was actually on the back of a lot of learning and a lot of invested personal time into the topic matter, into the subject matter. And when you start peeling away the layers of how we as a species have kind of used the plant in history, and then all of a sudden changed our mind over the last 100 years, well, something doesn't quite add up. So it was really nice to see that the CBD industry was about actually taking the benefits of this amazing plant and reintroducing it back into mainstream society and taking away that fear element, because there is, on the back of doing that, we have actually a lot of I guess history and necessary respect for a plant that helped our evolution. It helped, it's been there from day one.
So what are the fears that you come across in the industry? What were the fears?
Well, I think it's the stigma around the plant and the initial kind of 1930s to 1970s, cannabis was public enemy number one by institutions and governments. But when you peel away the layers of why that is, it wasn't based on scientific evidence. It was based on ideologies of the time. So there's no one really today that's responsible for how we got here, but certainly with a eyes on the past view, we can see where we kind of went wrong in how we approach our, I guess, our symbiotic relationship with such a nature's gift. So the science is actually what kind of won the day in that parallel. And we had the kind of ideological stigmatizing of the plant, and then a research, and almost, I would say, underground research at first, which then led on to an amazing discovery, and only just gone in the 90s, the amazing discovery of how our body interacts with the plant and what that means from a health perspective, as opposed to the stigma of, the dope fiend or the stoner that can't really get on with his day because he's always stoned type thing. That's the kind of stigma around it. But when used in the right way and used in a reasonable and responsible fashion, it can be life-changing for some. Not everybody. We don't make those sort of silver bullet. You can't make that, it fixes everything. CBD will cure this and cure. It's not the truth. It opens up a lot more of a discussion to people about understanding their body, how maybe CBD oil or cannabis generally works on the body, having that knowledge, and then also what that means for wider health learning that takes back people taking back the responsibility of their health to themselves, and self-care and self-love and learning about how our bodies work. Because let's face it, it's just you and your body on the planet, and everything else is there to experience. But if you got to keep the vehicle right, and that was Flora Fusion's mission from day one.
Yes, well, I guess it's like any other thing. I mean, alcohol, if you abuse it, then it wrecks your life.
Absolutely.
And it still is and it wrecks a lot of people's lives, and it's a big cost to the NHS as well, the abuse of
Absolutely.
it. So it's a good comparison, really. And again,
Yeah.
a glass of wine, is soothing, is sociable.
Yep.
When you drink
Absolutely.
the whole bottle, then
Yeah, if you're having 3 bottles a night as opposed to a glass with dinner, they're
yeah,
two very different
yes,
contrasts.
yeah,
And I suppose in the context of the recreational use of cannabis, it's the same thing. Responsible use is about, light use, moderate use is not going to have an impact of, say, someone who is reliant or addicted or maybe smoked at a young age and became almost patterned addicted to it because of the use at a young age, which my advice to anyone is just any youth, anyone under 18 is just, if you're going to try it, wait until you're an adult and you've developed, and then
yes.
because the damage potential is reduced significantly once the body is developed,
So what are the uses that people will have, that you provide? What are the uses and benefits?
well, I guess when we're talking about the stigma and everything, it's always around the kind of the psychoactive effect. It's always about the influence that cannabis has on the human body. With CBD oil, that psychoactive effect is removed from the use. So we have a range of full spectrum products, which is basically all of the benefits of the plant, but it's got the percentage of THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient, removed to about a 0.02%. So it's a trace element in the product. So you could drink a whole bottle and you're not going to get. So if that's what your objective is, we're not for you, because we're there for a supplementing fashion to help boost a very vital system to the body through high quality organic product formulas, which are, like, again, full extracts of the plant, removing the psychoactive compounds so that there's no kind of potential of getting high or having too much in that aspect, and then educating our customer base on how much they would need in a very small amount. You don't need a lot. You don't need a lot to get the effect that you'd be looking for, but every person's different and everyone's going to need a different either dosage, strength, or use schedule. And it's all commensurate with their age, their weight, conditions, and certainly things like medications. If they're being used, it's not a just use this as well. You've got to just consider these things, talk through it, understand the impact that it can have, and then also make sure that the consumer or the customer is fully aware of what's going on. They have the information at hand, and that makes for a much better experience, because the risk can sometimes be very, very low in someone having a negative experience. But we've also got to cater to those people who might be hypersensitive. And certainly if people are on medications, you want to make sure that you know what you're doing, that you've spoken to your prescribing practitioner, and you're dealing with a reputable company that has high quality products that they can, and also the advice and knowledge to help you to use it safely. But I guess when it comes to the stigma, it's usually around the potential of getting high, and Flora Fusion's products will not make you high. Like, no matter how much you take.
Yes, exactly. So the amounts are so minimal.
Yes, absolutely.
The
In the psychoactive ingredients, but rich in CBD, and the CBD chemical is certainly a non-psychoactive effect in taking it, but hugely beneficial with all the supporting compounds of a full spectrum formula in general health and well-being. And that's our kind of main target market, is
okay, understood.
that little boost.
Great. Okay, so Stephen, moving on to the business side of things,
Yes.
what was your biggest challenge you've had to face? I mean, you founded the business, you are managing it. What was your biggest challenge to overcome? You had to overcome.
I think is the fact that it was quite an ambiguous industry, being new, a burgeoning industry. Is certainly a cottage industry, certainly with something like cannabis as its context. It was the lack of support services, lack of financial products. Like, you know, everything that you need there to run a successful business wasn't there at the outset. It was needing, you had to break down barriers. You had to speak with and tell them what you're doing under a magnifying glass to say, you know, because they just hear the word hemp or they hear the word cannabis and that's it. Boom, automatically you are considered this. And that, to break through that initial wall, it wasn't always easy. But we got there because persistence was key. And it was all about making sure that people were making that decision based on true and accurate knowledge, as opposed to just oh, well, I heard of somebody. And then when you've got them and you can get people looking at the information and looking at the evidence and looking at the history, and it's 100 years of information you've got to try and tell someone in a 5-minute elevator pitch, you know, and it's sometimes, you know, you're going 100 miles an hour, but then when you've got someone there and you're sitting there and looking at the information, boom, they're usually converted human beings saying, wow, we've really not done a great job in giving this plant its respect, really, because remember, prior to the early 1900s, hemp and cannabis, you know, hemp was used everywhere. We used it for our the sailing industry, way back into when we first started to hit the seas and explore the world. Hemp was everywhere. It's a very unique and sustainable resource that we certainly don't utilize because of stigma. But in a world of sustainable approaches and net zero targets and alternate fuel sources, the fact that we don't shout this loud enough is somewhat disconcerting. So Flora is here to shout it alongside all of our other industry colleagues as well. We don't have competitors, we have industry colleagues, and we see it as a community, and we're here to service the public markets and consumer markets with safe, effective, and knowledgeable products to get people back into understanding what it's all about, with the main target being changing your quality of life if you're in poor health, and looking at how you can do that through simple changes. Dietary changes can be hugely impactful when you've got the right knowledge. So that's what we're here to do, and we align with nutritional therapists, and we align with other health and well-being industry networkers to make sure that if we're providing a recommendation on another product, maybe in one of our consultations, that we're leading people to high quality and ethical sources, as opposed to just, pop down to the local drugstore and get whatever you want for 50p off it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Okay. What are your future plans, say 5 years from now? What are your plans for growth?
Our targets for growth. Well, we grow organically. We're a small team. We're an organic because we have a 5-star reputation because of our customer service. So we're small, but we also very much believe in the human touch. For people having a voice on the end of the phone when they need it, sitting down and having the half-hour conversation with someone, whether they buy or not. To us, it helps to promote not only the brand and our knowledge archives, but it also helps to destigmatize another person. So we have, but for the next 5 years, we have a steady organic sales strategy to increase revenues and then diversify our services into other avenues, which I have to keep secret because my shareholders will kill me. But we've got some very exciting things on the horizon in a diversified structure, which will tie the brand in onto the bigger picture, and hopefully our customers and supply chain will notice that soon.
Brilliant. And geographically, where do you operate? What's your geographical market? Is it Scotland, UK?
It's our supply network ranges across Scotland, UK wide, and Europe. So those are the sort of the 3 main zones where we operate, and a lot of the supply elements come via Europe. And we do some business with China, but our main target sort of market is the UK, Scotland and England, Northern Ireland, and obviously in the European fields we don't really operate in Ireland. We have a industry colleague or industry colleagues that operate in Ireland, so we don't really tend to do much business over there because we would always just send them to those guys, So, but ultimately, UK, Scotland is our It's where it's an Australian founder in Scotland.
Yes.
Great multicultural story. And yeah, we have a good time.
Brilliant. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book ever.
Or one of?
The generic.
Some people say, well, at the moment is because we
Yeah.
changed life, and it's
Well, I might just make it contextual. My favorite business book. Well, I'll do that for the context of this discussion. But it was scaling. So it's the Mastering the Rockefeller Habits.
yes,
Scaling up, and then Scaling 2.0 was the follow-on book. So those two, I would say, were game changers for me, in just really cutting out the faff the fluff around business.
Yeah, it builds up.
The non-value items. It was good to be able. It was quite incisive. So I would always recommend something. And that was recommended to me by someone much more experienced than me when I was a little bit vulnerable and floundering at one point, and that was actually given to me, and it felt like the light shining on, and it just managed to just get the head in the right gear as to what's important, what's not in business, and really kind of being, I guess, in a leadership role, you need to be able to see those signs and mitigate them as quickly as possible. So we're not working, sending all this energy, time, and resource on non-value items or something that's not going to really benefit the business.
Yeah, brilliant. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie? Questions. But my favorite movie, I'm going to say The Goonies.
Which one?
The Goonies.
Okay, very good.
The 1980s film. Just
I
think that was my
I love that one when it came out.
My first ever favorite movie. So I always just say that one, but too many good movies out there to call a favorite.
Yes. If you could choose a superpower, what would you go for?
Oh, superpower. I think probably time. I like the kind of the time element, being able to sort of move backward and forward through time easily. Not so much, or whether or not, kind of Doctor Strange levels. That would probably be a superpower. That would be quite cool to master.
Yeah, a lot of people choose that one, actually.
Because you go, it's like, well, I've lost my keys. All right. I'll just.
Do you, if you could live a day in the life of, who would that be?
A day in the life of.
You don't have to be alive today, but
no, I think a day in the life. I think you'd probably have to. Genghis Khan or something like that, or someone like that, just to know what that would be like in that sort of kind of time period, and only for a day, mind you. Like, I don't want to get in no battles. I want out. 5 o'clock, I'm done. But it would be an interesting experience of that level.
Okay, and what would you suggest? What piece of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Oh, I actually wrote down an answer to that because I was thinking about it. Sometimes you have to say no. That's probably the advice to my 18-year-old self is, sometimes you have to say no, because you're full of energy and you want to do it all at the same time. But sometimes you have to look at it from a much more objective reality, and say no to those things that aren't going to benefit you, and not feel pressured to follow an idea or someone else's idea. I guess it's like, be able to stand your ground and in your beliefs, and that would be the advice to my young self.
Yeah, great, brilliant. I mean, I love the mantra, you can do anything but not everything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love it. It just helps you to focus and keep away the shiny objects.
And not trying to do everything at once, because like you say, you can do anything, not everything, and you might have a few good ideas at the same time, and you think, oh, I know, whilst I've got this innovation and urgency, I'll try all of them, and it's just not really the formula for success. Do one, finish it. Do another, finish it. Do another. Whether it's a success, a failure, a lesson, whatever, it doesn't matter. Close it out before you move on to the next one.
Well, another way of saying what you are saying is focus. Focus on the one thing at a time, and that brings back to memory. It was Bill Gates, his father, and Warren Buffett. It may have been a TED talk, and then an 11-year-old boy asked them, "Gentlemen, I admire what you've achieved in life. I would love to be like you. And what would you suggest to an 11-year-old who wants to achieve what you've achieved?" And the magic happened, and the three of them said at the same time, focus.
Focus, yeah.
It's
true. It's so easy to get distracted. And I mean, I guess at Flora Fusion, we do have a policy, because that was certainly the right ethos for the time. But we're living in a very different world now in businesses, that people are realizing that there's a work-life balance that's required, because you can focus on your business and be at the end of your career and realize you didn't stop to smell the roses. So it's that balance of both focus on what you're wanting to achieve and what the objectives are. We have a very strong focus that we don't want to be the biggest, but we want to be one of the best. And whatever size that gets to, well, we also want to enjoy the journey. And that brings the right energy to our company, which then is reflected in how we treat other people. We're very human behind the phone, and we're dealing with humans in respect of, certainly in most cases, maybe poor health or wanting to get better health. And then we have the guys who are healthy and they just want to introduce this into their daily supplemental routine. So we need to always be in a positive mindset and have that, have our stuff at home, sitting at home when we're dealing with the customers at front, but also having the time to deal with that, so that doesn't bring up pressures and then have this knock-on effect of not being able to continue doing what we do, which is being there and listening to our customers and what they need, and finding the right products for them in a very much a human to human way. We're using technology a lot more now, Javier, which is good. Before we were quite, I guess we were lacking the technological capabilities to be any sort of major problem to anybody else. But now we've changed that. So we want to use technology the right way, but never lose that human touch. And I think that's important for businesses these days. It's too much AI. I mean, I'm taking, for all the convenience that technology is giving me, everything takes longer now, and by way of whether it's not, it's accessibility and 5 different security things that you need to go through just to get into one simple app. And then I'm like, but you're just gonna, I sometimes sit there going, someone wants to steal this information, then what are they going to do with this? But I think convenience, customer journeys, and focusing on those customer journeys is very important for companies, and not just being like, oh, well, we do the numbers anyway, we're making enough profit, who cares? I think we've all got to change our minds in business, that we service people, and putting them first and our customers first is essential to continued success.
Brilliant. Well, Stephen, it's been a real pleasure having you on board today with us at Business Spotlight, and for sharing your experience and your journey with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Javier. It's been a pleasure, mate.
Thank you.